Today, I don't want to begin with advice. I want to begin with a question one that is deceptively simple, yet psychologically profound. Why do people seek remarriage in their 50s? Is it love? Is it companionship? Or is it something far more complex? Something rooted in loneliness, fear, and the deep architecture of the human mind? By the time a man reaches his 50s, life is no longer a blank canvas. It is a structure already built, already shaped, already carrying the weight of past decisions, relationships, and losses. And this is where remarriage becomes fundamentally different from marriage in youth. When we marry young, we are building a future together. But when we remarry later in life, we are not building from scratch. We are negotiating between two fully formed lives. And that distinction changes everything. The first psychological illusion, loneliness versus partnership. Many men in their 50s ask themselves, should I continue living alone? Wouldn't life be better with someone beside me? These are valid questions, but beneath them lies a more dangerous, often unexamined question. Am I seeking a partner, or am I trying to escape loneliness? Because psychologically, these are not the same. Loneliness is an emotional state. Partnership is a structural commitment. And when loneliness becomes intense, it distorts perception. You no longer evaluate a person based on compatibility, values, or long-term alignment. Instead, you focus on a single criterion. This person makes me feel less alone. That is not a foundation for a stable relationship. That is emotional anesthesia. The three structural risks in midlife remarriage. From a clinical and counseling perspective, three recurring risk patterns appear in remarriage after 50. First, emotion-driven decision-making. When loneliness dominates, emotional relief becomes more important than long-term compatibility. Second, economic imbalance. Unlike early marriage, financial structures in remarriage can shift power dynamics significantly. Dependency, whether emotional or financial, creates asymmetry, and asymmetry breeds instability. Third, misaligned psychological expectations. One partner may seek companionship, the other may seek security, control, or even emotional compensation for past wounds. If these expectations remain unspoken, the relationship slowly transforms into a conflict system. The gender divergence, men versus women. Now let's address a critical asymmetry. Research in counseling patterns consistently show many men remarry to resolve emotional loneliness. Many women remarry to restructure life stability. This leads to a fundamental mismatch. Men approach remarriage emotionally. Women often approach it structurally. Women tend to evaluate financial stability, living conditions, role expectations, long-term security, while men often evaluate emotional connection, immediate comfort, relational warmth. Neither approach is wrong, but when these frameworks collide without awareness, conflict becomes inevitable. A philosophical lens, the illusion of perception. To understand this more deeply, we turn to an ancient psychological framework found in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This text describes three forces that distort human perception: desire, attachment, ignorance. It suggests that when humans experience fear or loneliness, they do not see reality as it is. They see projections created by their own mind. In modern psychological terms, we might call this cognitive distortion. You are not seeing the person. You are seeing what you need them to be. So the most important question for a man considering remarriage is this: am I seeing this person clearly? Or am I seeing a projection created by my loneliness? The four psychological types of women in remarriage. Let us now shift perspective. Why do some women build stable remarriages while others repeat cycles of conflict? From a psychological standpoint, we can identify four common patterns. 1. The emotional stability type. These women seek companionship, not rescue. They value conversation, shared daily life, and emotional presence. They tend to evaluate character over condition. As a result, their relationships often stabilize over time. 2. the economic stability type. Here, remarriage is primarily about security. This is not inherently wrong. However, when the relationship becomes structured around dependency, psychological imbalance emerges. An imbalance leads to anxiety, control issues, and hidden resentment. 3. The compensation type. These individuals carry unresolved wounds from past relationships. Betrayal, financial conflict, emotional neglect. They seek remarriage not just for the future, but to repair the past. The problem is this: no new partner can fully compensate for an old wound. And when that expectation exists, disappointment is inevitable. 4. The control-oriented type. This pattern is driven by fear. Fear of loss, fear of instability, fear of being hurt again. So instead of building a cooperative relationship, they attempt to build a controllable one. But control and intimacy cannot coexist. The more control increases, the more emotional distance grows. The core variable, psychological maturity. At this point, we must confront the central truth. The stability of remarriage is not determined by love or money. It is determined by psychological maturity. Because after 50, marriage is no longer about creating life. It is about integrating two lives. And integration requires self-awareness, emotional regulation, realistic expectations, mutual respect. People with high psychological maturity ask themselves questions like, why am I drawn to this person? What emotional need is driving this decision? Am I reacting or choosing? These questions reduce unconscious conflict, the final test of a healthy relationship. So before entering remarriage, ask two simple but decisive questions. Do I feel more at peace with this person? And equally important, can this person remain fully themselves when they are with me? Because a healthy relationship does not complete you. It allows both people to exist without distortion, without control, without illusion. Marriage is not the union of two needs. It is the meeting of two realities. And when those realities are filtered through fear, loneliness, or unresolved desire, the relationship becomes unstable, no matter how strong the initial emotion. But when those realities are grounded in clarity, maturity, and mutual respect, remarriage can become not a risk, but a second architecture of stability in life. If this perspective helped you see relationships more clearly, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this lecture so that more people can approach life decisions with clarity rather than illusion. In the next lecture, we will go deeper into one of the most misunderstood psychological phenomena, the structure of compulsive behavior in relationships. Thank you.